welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel, the owner and creator here at the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. Today is Wednesday, and for today's video I have a couple of thrift flips for you guys. I actually had planned on having three, but one of them is just fighting me tooth and nail, you guys, and taking me way longer than I had expected, and I'm really not sure I'm loving how it's turning out. So it might be something in a future video, but for now I've just kind of put it on the back burner. But I did get two really cute projects finished for today. I can't wait to show them to you guys, and without further ado, let's get to today's video. My first project for today is this little box that I've had in my stash for quite some time. And the funny thing about this is it looks like it's wood, but it is not. It's actually plastic. There's not a scrap of wood in this thing. So I started by giving it a bath. It's been sitting on a shelf for quite some time. And then I used a little bitty screwdriver to just remove the hinges to get it ready to paint. Now, before I could get started, it had a couple little blemishes in it. So I grabbed some 220 grit sandpaper and just sanded those nice and smooth. I knew I wanted to use milk paint on this, which is self-leveling, and I didn't want any of these little bumps to show through. Once I had it cleaned back up again, I took it outside, and in between wind gusts, I managed to get a coat of this Rustoleum 2X spray. This is called Heirloom White. I just gave each piece one good even coat of this color. Now, since I'm going to be going over this with milk paint, there's always the possibility that the spray paint will cause a little bit of crackle. And in that case, I definitely wanted this creamy color to be what shined through the milk paint. Then for the interior of the box, I went ahead and painted over that spray paint with 2 coats of DIY's Crinoline. I just wanted this to have a nice matte finish on the inside, and I wanted to have a different color inside so it would contrast a little with the outside of the box. For the exterior color, I'm using this gorgeous kind of greenish blue called Ocean by Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. Now, I did add some extra bond to my paint, and I let my spray paint dry quite a bit before I started painting. So if I did get any crackle, it would be pretty minimal. I didn't want a whole lot of cracking on this. And the extra bond will help keep it from chipping or cracking on its own. I ended up giving the box 2 good coats of the Ocean paint and then letting it sit and dry completely before I moved on to sanding the outside. I like sanding my milk paint for a couple reasons. First of all, I think it helps even out the color just a little bit. Second of all, sometimes milk paint can be a little chunky, and I like it to be perfectly smooth when I'm done, so I like to sand it. I'm just using some 220 grit sandpaper and going over the entire body, and I'm also doing a little bit of distressing. I love the white peeking through that Ocean paint. Next up, I'm going to be adding some transfers, but before I can do that, I want to make sure to get all of that sanding dust cleaned off of my piece. So I actually took this over to my sink and just rinsed it off really quick with some water, and then let it drip dry for a minute, and then I took a dry shop towel and then just quickly wiped it down just to remove any sanding dust residue from it. Then it was on to the transfers. The transfer set I'm using on this box is called Natural Wonders, and it's honestly the reason that I chose the color ocean. I find that the foliage in this particular transfer set goes really, really well with that color. Now, before I actually start sticking any transfers to my piece, I like to take a minute and just spend some time arranging them to figure out exactly where I want each transfer to be. The nice thing about these transfers is that you can layer them. So you could start with your base layer, whatever is going to be in the back, and those lay down first. And that's kind of why I like to pre-arrange them so I know exactly where my background flowers need to be so that my foreground flowers will cover up any stems or anything that's sticking out too far. So I just one by one apply each transfer individually, just placing it down where I want it and then rubbing it down with the transfer stick while I peel back that piece of vellum. Now, one of the things I love about milk paint is once it's clean and dry, it is really, really easy to apply transfers to. So it didn't really take much rubbing, and you can see in a couple instances, I actually just used my fingernails, you guys. It's pretty simple. You can see there I had to cut one of the transfers because I had gone over onto the lid a little bit. And when I'm going around corners, I always like to lay the corner piece down first, or if I'm going over any kind of a raised detail, like on the bottom of this, I will always stick that down first. And then again, I'm just working my way across the box, adding one flower in at a time until I'm happy with my design. Now, I know some of you are probably wondering, why the heck did she not paint that ugly yellow bottom? And I assure you, once I was done with the top of the box, I did go back and paint that. So once I was finished with the transfers, it was time to seal. And for that, I am using white wax by DIY. I love the way that this white wax just really softens this ocean color and just gives it such a wispy, just beautiful look. So as you can see, I'm just going over this entire box with one good even coat of DIY's white wax. I'm just applying that with my soft bristle brush and then wiping back the excess with a dry shop towel. This is a really simple process and I absolutely love the look it gives. And then I did the same thing for the inside over that crinoline paint. At this point, I'm really happy with how the box is looking, but I felt like it just needed a little something. I am a huge fan of handles and knobs, so I grabbed this one out of my stash and decided to apply it to the top of this box. I also ended up installing a latch to the front of it, which I completely forgot to record. But once I was done with that, this box was finished, and I really love how it came together. I hope you guys do too. Now I'm pretty sure this second project was meant to lay down as a divider, either for utensils or tools or something like that. But when I bought it, I thought it would be such a cute little shelf, so that's kind of the direction I'm going to be going with it. Now I started by giving it a good coat of crinoline, and the only issue I had was some bleed through. This had a really dark finish on it, so I ended up having to shellac the entire thing once this coat of crinoline was dry. And for the shelves themselves, I went ahead and sanded them completely down just so that once I had painted them, they would still slide in and out of their respective slots. So this is me just taking some 80 grit sandpaper and stripping these all the way back down to the raw wood before I went ahead and painted them. Now you can see as I'm painting the second coat on how muddy the paint looks and how kind of yellowy it is, and that is from the bleed through and then of course the shellac I had to put on it to seal it. Thankfully, the shellac seemed to have fixed the problem, so I didn't get any more bleed through once I put that second coat of paint on. I did end up having to go over the entire thing with a third coat though, just because the finish underneath was so dark. Once I had it completely painted and it was dry, I went over it with some 220 grit sandpaper just to take a little bit of the roughness off and to do just a touch of distressing. On the inside, I didn't sand too terribly hard, but again, I just wanted a little bit of that dark wood to kind of shine through that crinoline paint and give it a little bit more of an aged patina. Once I was finished with the sanding, I took this back inside and wiped it down really well to get rid of any of the sanding dust to get it ready for some decoupage paper. Now, before I could decoupage this, I need to cut out my piece. So, of course, I measured the area that I needed to cover. And you know what they say, measure twice, cut once. Somehow I end up measuring it 4 or 5 times, though, before I managed to get my piece completely cut out. But for this, I'm using this gorgeous decoupage paper by Redesign with Prima. This is called Chapelle Royale. And it is a beautiful kind of neutral paper, but it does have some pink roses in it. And I thought this would be so pretty through the rest of winter and then into Valentine's Day. So I carefully cut out the piece of paper that I needed and then just dry fit it down inside the box to make sure it was going to fit. And then I moved on to steaming it. This is to remove the wrinkles. Now, anytime you get decoupage paper from Redesign, it is going to have wrinkles in it. This I find is a lot easier than trying to iron them out. I absolutely love the steamer. And so once that is done, I'm ready to decoupage. Now for my medium, I'm going to be using DIY's clear liquid patina. And I just want that liquid patina on the bottom of the box. So I'm making sure to just be really careful going around the edges. And I'm putting a pretty decent coat down. I find that you need quite a bit of the liquid patina. You want an even coat, obviously, but it needs to be a pretty thick coat for these thicker fibrous papers. You'll also see that I go along the edges a few times, and that is to make sure that I've got a good bead of that liquid patina right along the edge so that I don't end up having any lifting of my paper later on down the line. Once I've got that first strip of the liquid patina down, I just laid my paper down in the box, made sure it was nice and straight, and then I smoothed that paper down over the liquid patina, and then I began working my way down the box, adding a little bit more liquid patina very carefully, and then smoothing that paper down over the top of it. Once I had the whole sheet of decoupage paper adhered to the bottom of the box, it was time to go over it with a second coat of liquid patina. And again, I'm putting down a pretty liberal layer of the liquid patina, just making sure that it's nice and smooth over the top of the paper. Once my decoupage medium was dry, it's time to seal my paint. But before I actually start on the painted portion of this box, I am going to put a layer of clear wax over the decoupage paper. I think that this really helps soften this paper, and it helps those little fibers to lay down so that they aren't sticking up. So I just apply that again with my soft bristle brush and wipe back the excess. Then I move on to the painted portion of my box. Again, just applying a nice even coat of clear wax all over it, and then wiping back the excess with a dry shop towel. Once I'd finished with the main portion of the box, I gave each of the little shelves a coat of wax on the front and back, and then slid them into place. The middle one gave me a little bit of trouble, so I had to use my rubber mallet. And once I was done with that, I went ahead and attached a couple hangers on the back of this box, just in case somebody wants to hang it on the wall. And then this little shelving unit is done. From here for today, you guys. I hope you liked my projects, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up. I so appreciate that. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and then just hit the little notification bell so you don't miss anything. And then of course, don't forget to comment below and let me know what you thought of today's projects. Just a quick reminder, any of the paint and products you see me use can be purchased through me at my website, and that is www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. I carry DIY paint and products, as well as sweet Pickins Milk Paint and products, Royale Treasures decoupage papers, and some Redesign with Prima. So go check those out there. And let's see, for Saturday's video, it is going to be a thrift haul. So I went out on Sunday with my husband. We hit some of the Goodwills and a couple other little things while we were out running around, and found quite a few good deals. So my back of my car is full, and I also have a little nightstand dresser that I brought from home that was in my stash that I'll show you guys too. That is probably going to be a project coming up real soon. So stay tuned for Saturday. Until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week and beginning of the weekend. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. And I'll see you back here on Saturday. Bye.